Buying a property or a house with bad credit. Hi, Eddie Acevedo here, the Tattooed Realtor. I've been asked this time and time again, how do I buy a property when I have bad credit? Now, this is a topic that can be somewhat controversial because a lot of it depends on your idea of credit and what sort of program you want to buy into when you buy a property. And when I say property, it could be a single family home, a condo, a townhouse, whatever your heart desires. So buying a property or buying a house with bad credit. I've taken some notes because I definitely want to give you all the facts and ideas and thoughts that I've come up with when I keep getting asked this question. So the first thing that I recommend you do if you're trying to buy a property with bad credit is to get a full understanding of where your credit score is. How do you do that? A lot of times, like free annual credit report will allow you to pull your credit score from all three different providers or three different servicers like TransUnion, Equifax, and I know there's one more, that will allow you to get a thorough analysis of where your credit is at. When you're trying to buy a property with poor credit or bad credit, it's really important to understand where that credit score sits because there's a big difference, as we're going to talk about a little later, in what types of programs you can go to. So on these reports, it'll give you a thorough analysis of, like, let's say defaults or things that are in delinquency or late payments. As you're reviewing these reports, it's important to take notice of each one, like literally take a ruler and a highlighter and go down each one and make sure and hold each one accountable. Personal example, when I pulled my credit report, on the credit report, I forget which one it was, there was a medical bill that said I was in default because I hadn't paid it, but I did and I had proof of it. So the great thing about these reports is that there's actually like the contact information typically of the creditor that you can call and talk to try to rectify this. Now, when you have your credit report sitting in front of you, if you don't understand what you're looking at, which is totally possible because I myself got a little confused about certain things, seek out the advice from a credit report or credit specialist. I do know one. I'm going to try to tag him below. He's a really smart guy when it comes to this kind of stuff because you want someone who eats, sleeps, and drinks credit to be able to help you rectify it. Now, if you have negative marks on there, that's where you have to really determine whether or not you want to take care of it and how you're going to take care of it because that affects your credit score. I know Consolidation, from my own personal experience, was actually kind of negative on my credit for other reasons that we're not going to get into, but it's definitely something for you to consider. Once you have made the choice or the options to make things better on your credit report, you got to give it time. I don't know the exact time frame it takes for your credit score to improve. I heard it's as quick as 30 days or 60 days to see improvement, but you don't really know until it's all said and done. That's why the overarching theme in this idea of buying a house or a home with bad credit is to plan or prepare, or plan, prepare, and then purchase. Plan, prepare, purchase. Because you need to create a plan, you need to prepare for that plan, and then you can make your purchase. So this may not be like an instant overnight kind of thing, but at least you're getting yourself started, which I'm really proud of you for doing because a lot of people don't even think about that. You can't ignore your credit because it kind of follows you everywhere around. The next thing I started thinking about was you could also go the cosigner route. Now with cosigners, things can get a little tricky. That's when you want to pair up with like a mortgage professional. If you don't have one, I know a bunch of them, but you definitely want to find someone who's educated in the type of program you're getting into. My suggestion is obviously have your full credit report, send in your application, your W-2s, or whatever information they're requesting from you, so they have a thorough analysis before you get out there on the road and waste your time and get excited. I've seen it time and time again that people get excited for a purchase of a property when they realize they can't buy it because the approval they got was just a conditional approval when it really no document underwriting was taking place, meaning that the mortgage professional never looked at their credit, never looked at their income, never looked at anything. They just wrote this letter and the people get disappointed. So that's kind of like chasing a rabbit because that's a different story in itself. But you could get a cosigner depending on the program that you have. I'll give you a perfect example. A customer of mine, a husband and wife, wanted to buy a property. The property was a significant amount, and so I recommended that they both try to be on the mortgage to see if that would increase their purchasing power to achieve what they wanted to achieve with not stretching them too thin. Well, it turns out that one of them wasn't able to be on that mortgage because of the debt that they had incurred on the credit report. But the other spouse was able to do it alone. So just because one person has bad credit, the other may not. And also keep in mind that just because you have poor credit doesn't necessarily mean there aren't programs that will work for you. I recommend taking your phone out or going onto Google after you watch this video and Googling credit score requirement for an FHA loan, or for a conventional loan, or for a jumbo loan, or for whatever type of loan you're trying to get, because each one has a different requirement. I just read this afternoon that FHA has a minimum requirement of 580 credit score. Now, that 580 credit score, and they even said on the website, like, just because you're lower than that 580 doesn't mean that you're totally excluded. Be sure to seek or inquire more thoroughly. I 100% agree with that. When you're dealing with the cosigner, obviously make sure this is someone that you know and you feel safe with, because this is going to be a huge undertaking for them. You could also be gifted money, and that kind of goes into this idea outside of the cosigner. If you're trying to buy a property with bad credit, you could obviously pay cash, okay? Now, cash is king. You can use it to negotiate. You can use it as a huge advantage when you're dealing with real estate. I don't necessarily agree with dumping all your cash into a property. There's a theory that I talk about with not putting money in your walls, and I'll create a later video about that, but cash is definitely king. Now, when you're buying a property with cash, just because you have cash doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, everything's gonna go perfectly. Now, if you have more cash and you have poor credit, sometimes the mortgage companies will work with you on that, but they're gonna wanna have proof where that cash came from. Now, if this is a side deal, there's no mortgage company involved, it really doesn't matter. But you definitely wanna be able to prove where that cash came when there's a mortgage company or some sort of different entities involved. That can even be so much as when you get gifted money. Meaning, let's say my wife and I were trying to buy a property, we didn't have enough money for our down payment. Certain programs will allow me to get money from my friends and family gifted to me as a gift that will then be applied towards my down payment. But there's something tricky there. Just because it's gifted doesn't mean that that person can just pull the money out of thin air or like knock over a bank or something like that. There needs to be a record of it. With mortgage companies, especially since the whole crash issue and there's a lot more regulations in place, you have to be able to prove where everything comes from. Or you'll get some of those nice orange jumpsuits with DOC on the back. They kind of frown upon that quite well. So cash, you could get gifted the money, you could have a co-signer. The other thing I started thinking about here was you could gather information about the different programs that are in place for you in your county or your state or your district or whatever. A lot of times there are programs out there that will allow you, the the buyer, to be able to buy properties without having to put a lot of cash down or with having a lower credit score or a lower income. I know one program's called NACA, N-A-C-A. I know there are requirements and courses that you have to take in order to you'll be able to get this sort of program, but I recommend you look into it. I would probably start at looking at like the urban, the Housing Urban Development section, HUD. Maybe they have some programs as well as other grant programs in your city. Maybe go to City Hall directly or ask them, via social media or however the case may be, for you to be able to get more information on that. So this is my video about buying a house or buying a home with poor credit. I hope it helped. If you have any questions at all, it's all about what you know and who you know, right? So I have a great plethora of contacts I'd be more than happy to share with you, that at least you can pick their brain. I'm also here to help any way I can. Be sure to call, text, or email. My information is below. Leave a comment in the questions in the area below if you have any questions or comments. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe, because I'd love to be able to share more of my awesome information that God's given me to other people. So don't get discouraged. Just because you have bad credit doesn't mean that you're prohibited from buying a home. Maybe it's not going to be at this exact moment. Maybe it's not God's timing. Maybe it's going to happen 6 months from now or a year from now. I like to think things happen for a reason. So just a small little recap. Get a full analyzation of your credit. Try to get it through, your free annual credit report. If not, go to the actual websites of like Equifax or TransUnion. Get the report. Thoroughly analyze it. Maybe hook up with like a credit repair expert that can help you and guide you through that process. I recommend hooking up with a mortgage professional, having them run your numbers, meaning your taxes, your W-2s, your credit score. Get like an authentic number of what you can buy, not just these flimsy, whimsy, pre-approval nonsense that don't mean anything. The next thing you could think about is getting a cosigner to help you in this process, if that's what you want to do, paying cash. And then, but last but surely not least, maybe looking into your state, city, districts, programs that are out there that are designed for situations like this. So this is Eddie, the Tattooed Realtor. I hope you have a great rest of the week. I'm always here to help. I'll be praying for you and getting your credit score up. You have a great rest of the week, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.